Stocks drift lower after weak overnight cues following Fed Chair Jerome Powell's stocks are fairly highly valued comment. Realty and IT are big drags even as metals eke out gains. Swiggy will sell its stake in Rapido to raise a little under 2,000 crore rupees. A move to sell Instamart on a slump sale basis to its subsidiary for cash will also add to its resource pool as it opens up fresh fundraise possibilities. PhonePe files with SEBI for an IPO, sources tell CNBC-TV18. This will be via a 12,000 crore rupees offer for sale by Walmart, Tiger Global and Microsoft. The offer is likely to hit D Street only in 2026. India's Steel Secretary sees industry growing at 9 to 10% in FY26, up from 8% so far following GST 2.0. He also sees steel prices balancing from low levels on higher consumption. On the safeguard duty, he expects a decision before November 1st. Hello and welcome to Business Lunch live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studio. I'm Vamakshi Doria, and so far today the markets have seen a fair bit of recovery from the day's lowest points. We're off the day's low by almost around 100 points, but nevertheless we still continued that trend of making lower lows each day as we've seen in the last couple of sessions. The mid-cap end of the market is also not doing too well. It continues to underperform the benchmark indices. Apart from that, the small cap index also not doing great. FMCG is the one of the few sectors that is trading in the green. Support coming in from Hindustan Unilever as well as Britannia. What's not doing too well is the Realty pack. That index is down almost 2%. IT continues to be under pressure, and Nifty Auto, after the last couple of days wherein we've seen good gains for the auto companies, that index is also seeing a fair bit of correction. But moving on then, the Indian rupee opened strong after yesterday's record low close. But lost a bit of its early gains on strong dollar buying. Dealers say the RBI was supplying dollars. Lata is here with the market wrap. Lata?
The rupee opened exactly where it closed yesterday. That was about 88.75. Remember, on Tuesday it had gone to an all-time low of nearly 88.90, 88.80. Almost 88.79, if you please. After the steady start, it actually moved a little stronger. It went, the dollar cost as cheap as 88.65 up to a point. And what dealers told us is that there was a goodish bit of supply from public sector banks, and that's usually a proxy for the Reserve Bank. It sells through public sector banks. There were dealers telling us that even in the NDF market, the offshore market for the rupee, also the Reserve Bank was supplying dollars. However, the demand for dollars was so incessant from FPIs. The foreign funds normally, if they have sold equities yesterday, they would come in and buy dollars today to remit it back home. So that dollar buying demand was pretty high. And so despite the offer from the Reserve Bank, the rupee stayed around that 88.70, 88.75 mark. The other factor impinging was the dollar index has moved a tad higher. Early morning, it was, say, 97.23. It went up to 97.45. So that has put pressure on many other Asian currencies also. All of them are down 1/3%, and that was impinging on the rupee as well. However, the expectation is that, there will be month-end flows as well. The Reserve Bank has shown a very firm hand, and perhaps, therefore, that trying to cross 89 will not be attempted by the rupee shorts. There is a general educated view among economists that at 89, the bad news is in the price. In fact, even at 88.75. So there isn't any need for further depreciation, but we have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lata, for bringing us that comprehensive roundup as far as the rupee is concerned. But let's put the focus on Swiggy then. The company is set to raise cash via a stake sale in Rapido and the sale of Instamart to a subsidiary. How will this affect its financials? Vinny is here with all the details. Vinny, over to you.
Hi, Vamakshi. Good afternoon. So firstly, let me take you through the news flow that's coming for Swiggy. Swiggy has divested around 12% stake in Rapido. This is one. The board has approved a sale of 10 equity shares as well as 1,64,000 approximately Series D CCPSs, which will be sold to Porus, one of the companies of Porus, MIH Investments. Now, other than that, obviously, the company is also going to be selling around 36,000 Series D CCPSs to Setu AIF, that is Westbridge's company. That will be around 430 crores that they'll get from this. And from Porus sale, they'll get around 1,968 crore rupees. So total that they will get from this stake sale is going to be around 2,400 crore rupees. Now, this divestment is something that the company had already spoken about in Q1 FY26 as well. Apart from that, there is a restructuring that the company has announced as well. The company said that now the board has approved a transfer of Instamart business for the company, including all the asset and liabilities of Instamart, to Swiggy Instamart Private Limited. That is a new wholly owned subsidiary of the company that will come in. This move will help them further smoothen the process that comes in for Instamart being treated as an India-owned and controlled company. So that is a main move coming in here. And plus, Instamart is growing at a faster pace. So, obviously that also comes in as a separate sort of a business. Now, in terms of cash on books that are there for the company, cash on books as on 30th of June for Swiggy was at around 5,300 crores approximately. From Rapido, they'll get 2,400 crores, the stake sale over there, right? So overall cash balance by the end of Q2, we could watch out for will be somewhere around 7,750 crore rupees. Now, there are certain risks that come into play because the cash burn for Swiggy is at around 1,300 crores. This is the last I'm checking was in Q1 FY26, which is much higher than Zomato because Zomato had an inflow that came in terms of cash of 33 crores. So there was not a cash burn that time. Now, obviously, because of this, what are the risks that actually play out for Swiggy? One, expansion plan risk that comes in. There's increased competition that comes in as well. And because of that, Blinkit also, when you look at it in terms of cash that Eternal has versus the cash that Zomato has, Eternal has much higher cash on their books as well. So they are giving a very strong guidance in terms of store count expansion that they have versus what Swiggy has been adding or even has going forward right now. Loss in terms of quick commerce business, that's widening for Swiggy. So that's a big concern coming in. And valuations for Swiggy is still cheaper than Zomato, but that's what we'll be keeping an eye out on. Right now, a bit of a concern and risk that are highlighted. That are the factors we'll keep an eye out.
Absolutely, Vinny. Thanks for highlighting all of that on Swiggy as well as Eternal. But moving on then, digital payment and financial services provider PhonePe is gearing up for its IPO. Ritu is here with more details. Ritu?
Well, Walmart-backed PhonePe, like you said, has filed draft papers with SEBI for a mega IPO. And this has been done through a confidential pre-filing route, a move that the company confirmed to us in a statement. Now, the IPO, of course, has been in the works ever since PhonePe shifted its base from Singapore to India back in December of 2022. It had then announced IPO plans earlier this year. And now sources are telling us that the company is looking to raise nearly 12,000 crore rupees, that is $1.35 billion, through an offer for sale in this IPO. Walmart, which is the majority shareholder with a near 84% stake, Tiger Global and Microsoft are the three shareholders that will participate in the OFS. That will involve a combined dilution of around 10% stake. PhonePe, remember, launched its digital payment app in 2016, and since then it has expanded into various financial services, including insurance, lending, wealth management, and even ventured into consumer tech with PIN code and the Indus App Store. It also recently received RBI's final nod to operate as an online payment aggregator, and it does remain a clear market leader when it comes to UPI payments with a near 46% market share. But there is a catch there. The NPCI has set a December 2026 deadline to cap any single app share at 30%, which gives PhonePe some breathing room, but only for now. Now, on the numbers front, very quickly, while losses are narrowing, PhonePe is not profitable yet for FY25. Its revenues increased more than 40% to about 7,100 crore rupees, the bulk of it from the payment services. But the net losses also remain. They came down 13% year on year, though, to about 1,727 crore rupees.
Thank you so much for that, Ritu. Indeed, the primary market continues to be abuzz. Lots of IPOs. In fact, I think we have 7 which have issues open right now. Thank you so much, and probably there could be one in the future. But on that note, let's slip into a very short break. Then we'll get you more news and updates on the other side, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC TV 18. Well, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell noted that asset prices are at elevated levels. Now, during a speech, the central bank chair was asked how much emphasis the Fed places on market prices and whether they have a higher tolerance for higher values. He said, and I quote, "We do look at overall financial conditions and we ask ourselves whether our policies are affecting financial conditions in a way that is what we're trying to achieve." But you're right, by many measures, for example, equity prices are fairly highly valued. End of quote. Well, Powell also said that the near-term risk to inflation is tilted to the upside. During a speech, he also spoke about the easing cycle. Let's listen in.
Near-term risks to inflation are tilted to the upside, and risks to employment are tilted to the downside, a challenging situation. Two-sided risks mean that there is no risk-free path. If we ease too aggressively, we could leave the inflation job unfinished and need to reverse course later to fully restore 2% inflation. If we maintain restrictive policy too long, the labor market could soften unnecessarily. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework has long called for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate.
Take a short break then. We'll get you more news and updates on the other side, so don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying tuned into Business Lunch. Now, at the United Nations General Assembly, US President Donald Trump accused China and India of funding Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. He even called out the NATO countries purchasing Russian energy. Listen in.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one?
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron makes a phone call to Donald Trump after his journey to the French embassy was blocked by police officers preparing for the motorcade of the US president. Macron, outside his vehicle, was speaking with New York police officers, asking to negotiate with them.
Guess what? I'm waiting the street because everything is frozen for you.
Well, interesting development out there, just goes to show that even presidents like us, aren't immune to roadblocks. So, yeah, that's what played out, but that's on a lighter note. But with that, that's all the action that we have on this edition of Business Lunch. Don't go anywhere. Midcap Radar will take all of the action forward.